Joining me now with more reaction, the author of a brand new book, A Disgrace to the Profession, now available on Amazon for pre-order, the one and only Mark Steyn. Mark, you look at these numbers, every single category, 2 polls in 2 days.
Right.
You know, only one other candidate in the new polls in double digits, and the top 3 in the Fox poll is Ben Carson, Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz, insurging candidates. What are these polls saying?
Well, I think the polls are expressing as much as anything a dissatisfaction with the Republican establishment. We keep being told that Trump has a ceiling on his support. And I confess, you know, in the first few weeks of his candidacy, I thought that was true too. But it's not just that 25% of people support him as their first choice. It's that 10%, another 10% would back him as their second choice. So he's got potentially 35% support in the Republican primary. I thought one of the most interesting numbers in that poll was one showing that up against Hillary, she would be 47%, he would be 42%. Now, a few weeks ago, it was Hillary 51%, Trump 34%. So all his unfavorables are coming down. And I think instead of just scoffing at him and saying, oh, the McCain crack is going to kill him, the Republican establishment needs to consider the fact that this guy is a serious leading candidate. He could well win the nomination, and he has as good a shot as anybody else at actually winning the general election,
He's been able to defy political gravity or historical or traditional political gravity up to this point. And you mentioned a number of instances that might have killed off another candidate. Does that continue for him? And if you were going to give him advice, you get on the phone, Donald Trump here, Mark Steyn, I have some advice for you. What would it be?
Well, I would tell him to continue being Trump because he's performing a useful service to the Republic.
I agree.
Because frankly, you know, all the stuff that's supposed to kill him, the cracks about John McCain, is all peripheral to the serious issues that he's talking about. I mean, basically, his immigration paper ought to be the sort of thing that one of these sort of so-called mainstream, so-called viable candidates ought to have put out, but they didn't put it out. And because they didn't put it out, he's taken up a real issue that's made them all look mealy-mouthed and evasive. And as Ann Coulter said on your show a week or 2 back, you know, if you don't like what Trump's saying, steal his issue. They're leaving it too late to do that. Trump's immigration paper is a serious paper. It seriously gets to the lack of social mobility and the lack of economic opportunity in contemporary America, and very few other candidates are discussing that seriously.
And it's interesting, and we're going to debate a segment later in the program, how illegal immigration is taking jobs from minorities in this country, and it's driving down wages, and it's having a massive impact, and we have 93 million Americans out of the labor force. Interesting, 2 things have happened. You have Ted Cruz said that he was lied to by the leadership in the Senate. Scott Walker, very openly critical now of leadership in Washington. It seems, and this I think is a positive development, it seems now that Trump has given license to some of the other candidates to kind of begin to express their real views here and be more outspoken. Well, I think that'll make everybody stronger in the end, no?
Yeah, well, you've got a choice, because for the other candidates, you can be on the Boehner, McConnell, Jeb Bush side of things, or you can be on the insurgent Trumpian side of things. The fact is, it's not just Ted Cruz who was lied to by these guys. The old saying is, what is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, the Republican establishment fooled its voters once in 2010. It fooled its voters twice in 2014. And I don't think they're in a mood to be fooled again thrice. It's a 2-party system, which is unusual in the modern Western world. And one of those parties is ineffective, has been ineffective for the entire 21st century at providing a coherent opposition to the other party.
You know, it's very interesting.
And Trump is saying we're tired of being told reasons why you can't do things. His immigration plan, people keep coming up with this thing, Sean, oh no, it would require constitutional amendments. It's pie in the sky. It can't be done. Nothing can be done. Nothing can ever be done. It doesn't require constitutional amendments to end birthright citizenship. Dina Gilby's husband, a British subject, died on 9/11 rescuing Americans from the World Trade Center. He escaped, but he went back in to try and rescue his colleagues. A week later, the Immigration Service of the United States, the heartless thugs, sent Dina Gilby a letter saying she and her kids were out of there. So they have no difficulty deporting birthright citizens when they're British subjects of guys who died in the World Trade Center. The idea that it requires a constitutional amendment is complete codswallop from beginning to end. And people are tired of being told why nothing can be done, Sean.
Really well said. And it's funny because I had Jorge Ramos on the program last night, and he said, oh, it's impossible to build a wall. It's impossible to deport people that came into this country illegally and didn't respect our laws and sovereignty. Conventional wisdom politically on the issue of deportation of illegal immigrants has been that if you ask people to leave, which happens to be Mexico's policy, that it's political suicide. What's your answer to that?
Well, again, to go back to 9/11, a couple of days after that, the INS started cracking down on various Pakistanis in the New York area who they thought had connections to terrorism. One result of that was that thousands of Pakistanis drove straight up I-87 to the Quebec border. And there was a big line of Pakistanis to try and get into Canada because, in effect, the INS had tried to get hold of a couple of dozen and everybody else had stampeded out of there. The United States government devotes vast resources to cracking down on Americans' ability to maneuver around the world. It's increasingly difficult for an American to open up a bank account in Paris or Hong Kong or Montreal or anywhere. Yet at the same time as they say that they can crack down on American citizens operating outside the country, they say it would be completely impossible to crack down on non-Americans operating within the country.
The Democrats
and people get this nonsense. People understand it.
We have Rudy on talking about Hillary's email scandal coming up next. She's got her own problems. From what I can see is people are encouraging Joe Biden, John Kerry, Al Gore, Elizabeth Warren, and even Comrade de Blasio, the mayor of New York, to get into this race. I got to expect that one of them is going to get in. On top of that, she's got real significant legal issues. She may not be their candidate. Newt Gingrich doesn't think she makes it.
No, I don't think she'll be the candidate either, Sean. I think that is the way to bet. And again, I think what the great service Trump has done is to blast us free of the sort of pap of looking at in political spheres. The idea that somehow Trump is a non-serious candidate, but the serious, substantial candidate is Hillary Clinton, who as chief foreign affairs official of the United States kept the confidential business of the United States on a server in some guy's apartment in his bathroom in the apartment. And that's it. So if that's what the serious people do, the sooner they hand this country over to the buffoons, the better. And that's why Trump is surging. You can't have a two-party state where one party is a liberal party and the other party is basically the Chamber of Commerce's poodle, because if all you do is exchange George III for the Chamber of Commerce, then the revolution was a complete waste of time, Sean.
You are on your game tonight, Mr. Steyn. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.